Special report.
We are coming on the air because former Congressman Matt Gaetz is withdrawing his consideration for Attorney General. He posted on X saying as much amid concerns about sexual misconduct allegations and also concerns about his limited legal experience. I want to go to our chief Washington correspondent, Jonathan Karl, who's on the phone right now. John, what do you make of Gaetz now issuing this message after so much from President-elect Trump and Gaetz himself saying that he was going forward until this confirmation process?
On one level, it's not surprising, Diane. Gaetz was facing a very steep uphill climb. A number of Republican senators, and remember, they were only going to get Republican senators, but they have a 53-seat majority. They could only afford to lose 4. They weren't going to get a single Democrat. And a number of Republican senators had publicly been expressing deep skepticism and concern about the Gaetz nomination. I am told that privately, several of them were even more direct with the Trump transition team, saying that there was simply no way that they would vote to confirm Gaetz. So you had a situation where Gaetz, with all of the controversy swirling around his nomination, was simply not going to get the votes to be confirmed. That clearly is a driving factor in this rather stunning dropout. And I say not surprising on one level, stunning on another level, because what the Trump team had been signaling is that they were going to push for this. They were going to fight for this. They were going to make Republican senators unwilling to vote for Gaetz pay if they dared, cross the president-elect, who they believe has a mandate to get the cabinet of his choice. So, in that sense, this is a very abrupt reversal from where they were just a few hours ago.
And I want to bring in our Jay O'Brien on Capitol Hill because, Jay, this comes a day after the House Ethics Committee couldn't agree on whether or not to release a report, an investigation that they've been doing into Gaetz before he resigned from Congress. How much was that an indication of the challenge he was going to face trying to get confirmed by the Senate?
Well, it was a demonstration, Diane, of how rocky of a confirmation process this could have been for Matt Gaetz, because we knew from Senate Republicans that regardless of what the House Ethics Committee decided to do in terms of publicly releasing that report, they wanted to know what the House Ethics Committee and the Department of Justice, which also investigated these allegations and declined to bring criminal charges, uncovered over the course of their investigations. And senators had said they had already requested Democrats in the Senate what the FBI uncovered into Matt Gaetz. They were positioning themselves to see what the House Ethics Committee uncovered into Matt Gaetz. And so there were senators who wanted to know exactly what was found into Matt Gaetz, which sources told us was a woman telling the committee that when she was 17 years old and in high school, and Matt Gaetz was a sitting member of Congress in 2017, that he had sex with her. Women telling the committee, according to their attorney, that they witnessed Matt Gaetz having sex with a minor, that he paid them for sex through Venmo records, which ABC News also obtained. Point being, what we saw dripping out of that Ethics Committee investigation clearly demonstrated to senators that this was going to be an uphill battle for Matt Gaetz. And there were some senators who wanted Gaetz to go through this fight. Lindsey Graham said yesterday, after he met with Gaetz right up here on Capitol Hill, that Matt Gaetz should have a confirmation hearing and have the chance, in Lindsey Graham's words, to quote-unquote confront his accusers. But Matt Gaetz now dropping out of this process, the results of that House investigation now remaining in limbo as to whether or not they will ever see the light of day, and certainly no Senate confirmation hearing in Matt Gaetz's future, Diane.
And, John, there was a lot of backlash against this nomination from the start, not only because of those allegations, but also because of Gaetz's limited legal experience. So where does that put the Trump transition team now? Who will they name if it's not Gaetz?
Yeah, one Republican Senator, Markwayne Mullin of Oklahoma, said that he didn't know that Gaetz was an attorney until he was announced as the candidate for Attorney General. So, yes, his experience and his approach to the Justice Department was a big part of this, as were the allegation. In terms of what comes next, Trump interviewed several candidates for Attorney General. He can certainly go back to that list. But here's what I would look for, Diane. As Gaetz was announced, he also announced his choice for Deputy Attorney General. That is Todd Blanche, who is his lead defense counsel on a number of his cases, most prominently the New York hush money case. Todd Blanche became the personal lawyer to Donald Trump. He is a former prosecutor. He is widely respected. and he is somebody that clearly has the trust of Donald Trump. I would look to whether or not he would consider elevating Blanche, who he's already chosen and already announced as the Deputy Attorney General nominee, to be the nominee for Attorney General.
And we know that Gaetz could opt to retake his seat when the congressional session resumes in January. We'll be waiting to watch more on all of that. John Karl, Jay O'Brien, thank you both. And our coverage continues on ABC News Live and on abcnews.com. I'll be back. Also, David Muir will have more tonight on World News Tonight, and I will be back on ABC News Live right after this break. Right now, we'll return you to your regular programming. Have a great day. And you are watching ABC News Live's continuing special coverage as former Congressman Matt Gaetz announces he is withdrawing from consideration for Attorney General. That announcement comes amid allegations of sexual misconduct and also concerns about Gaetz's limited legal experience. I want to bring in senior White House correspondent Selena Wang, who's in West Palm Beach, Florida, for more on that. Selena, President-elect Trump had been standing by Gaetz all the way. So how surprising is this development in that context?
Diane, this is a really stunning reversal. Just yesterday, you had J.D. Vance using his political capital, shepherding Matt Gaetz on Capitol Hill, meetings with Senate Republicans. And we were told from a Trump official that those meetings were productive. And some Senate Republicans had expressed some positive reaction out of those meetings. But now today, you have this stunning reversal. And we're learning from sources now that during some transition meetings yesterday, that Donald Trump privately acknowledged that it seemed like there was not going to be a path forward for Matt Gaetz. Several Senate Republicans have said before that they were not going to support Matt Gaetz, that they weren't certain that he was going to get their support. So it became clear that Matt Gaetz, if he went through the Senate confirmation process, just wasn't going to get the necessary votes needed. But look, prior to this, we had heard that in the previous few days, Donald Trump had been calling Senate Republicans. He had been upping the pressure, that he was calling them directly to make their pitch, make his pitch for Matt Gaetz. And we were told by a senior Trump advisor that the message to some of those Senate Republicans in meetings yesterday was rather dark and ominous, and that if they did not go with Donald Trump's choices for these cabinet picks, that their political careers could be on the line. But look, in a way, it's not entirely surprising from the sense that the controversy around Matt Gaetz has only been building from the day that Donald Trump announced him as his pick for Attorney General. We know that Donald Trump is looking for loyal figures around him, especially for a role like Attorney General. But all the controversies around him, the fact that Department of Justice had been investigating him for years, although those charges were not ultimately filed, and the fact that you had this ongoing House Ethics Committee that was abruptly stopped when Gaetz dropped out of Congress, all of that has only been mounting as we also continue to see the drip drop of more details about the allegations of sexual misconduct involving Matt Gaetz.
And I want to bring in senior reporter Catherine Falders on exactly that point, because, Catherine, the House Ethics Committee couldn't agree on whether or not to release this report to the Senate. But we were starting to get more and more details about what they heard throughout the course of those investigations.
Yeah, we were starting to get more details, and a lot of those details come from our reporter Will Staken, who has been reporting extensively on this story about what witnesses have told the committee behind closed doors about allegations of Gaetz having sex with minors. Now, we know that that report, no one could agree on releasing that report yet. They will meet in early December to, of course, discuss next steps on that. But at least from my vantage point down here in Florida and from sources that I've been talking to close to Trump, this became very clear that Gaetz wasn't going to get confirmed. They saw no path to 50, essentially, in the Senate. They knew this. They knew this last week, Diane. They had Trump himself calling senators. They had J.D. Vance calling senators. And what they were hearing behind the scenes was, no, we're just not going to vote for him. Of course, not all Republicans, but they didn't see a path there. And I'm told just, as late as yesterday evening, that Trump essentially was saying behind closed doors with his advisors that he didn't really see a path for Gaetz to be Attorney General either. I'm told also that Gaetz did phone the president-elect late this morning, obviously informing him of his decision. But, of course, informing him of the decision came as Trump behind the scenes grew quite frustrated with what he continued to learn from this new public reporting about Gaetz. So in Trump's statement, statement, he says that Gaetz didn't want to be a distraction for the administration. He says he wishes him well, but it is quite a shocking development, and it does beg the question as to what's next. He's nominated a deputy attorney general, Todd Blanche, his top defense attorney, who will serve in his Justice Department. Does he elevate Blanche to be the nominee for attorney general? All of those things are discussions, at least at this point, that are happening behind closed doors as to what they do next.
And I want to begin at Chief Washington correspondent Jonathan Karl. John, any reaction from President-elect Trump or his team?
We've just heard from the president-elect through his Truth social media account. He says in this posting, "I greatly appreciate the recent efforts of Matt Gaetz in seeking approval to be the Attorney General. He was doing very well, but at the same time did not want to be a distraction for the administration, for which he has much respect. Matt has a wonderful future, and I look forward to watching all of the things he will do." So notable, first of all, he's acknowledging Gaetz's decision to drop out, and he is saying he's looking forward to watching all the great things he will do. In other words, it's not that he's looking for another place in a Trump administration that wouldn't require confirmation. He is effectively saying goodbye to Matt Gaetz, it seems to me, with this statement.
Jay, that said, I want to bring back our Jay O'Brien on Capitol Hill because, Jay, Gaetz did resign from his current seat in the House, but he was reelected, so for the next session, if you will. So in January, he could opt to go back to the House, couldn't he?
Right. We're currently in the 118th Congress right now. Come January, we'll be in the 119th Congress, and everybody who won in November will take their seats. And Matt Gaetz won re-election in November. He resigned from the 118th Congress, and when he resigned in a resignation that was read on the House floor, he said he didn't intend to take his seat in the 119th Congress because he was Donald Trump's pick to be Attorney General. But he didn't resign from the Congress that hadn't happened yet because he couldn't. So Matt Gaetz, technically, as far as we can tell in the House rules, has the option to come back to the House of Representatives and take his seat. I can tell you, I'm texting with sources close to Gaetz, and they don't know his next move at this hour. It's not clear if he's fully spelled out his next move at this hour. All of this is still fast developing. And also, if Matt Gaetz were to return to the House of Representatives, which it appears he has the option to do, obviously that would make him vulnerable again to that ongoing House Ethics Committee investigation that's been going on for months, that was stopped when he resigned because the Ethics Committee no longer has jurisdiction over someone who's not a sitting member of Congress. But if Matt Gaetz returned to Congress, the Ethics Committee would have jurisdiction over him again and would potentially be able to release what we know has been a long compiled report of theirs, and people who have told the committee, including a young woman, that she had sex with Matt Gaetz when she was 17 years old and he was a sitting member of Congress. These are all things that Matt Gaetz has denied. He has called this House Ethics Committee investigation into him politically motivated. But nonetheless, if he did exercise what we believe to be his option to return to the House, he would become potentially vulnerable to that House Ethics Committee investigation again, Diane.
And sources are now telling ABC News that in the last few days it became clear to the Trump team that he was not going to be able to secure Senate confirmation, that there was no path to 50 votes here. Selena, when he was named, we already knew this was going to be an uphill battle just based on the response and based on his history, right? Not a huge surprise here. So why, as president-elect, why would Trump name him anyway, knowing this was an uphill battle? And if you're going to go that far, what does it tell you that they're not pushing for a recess appointment?
Yeah, Diane, first of all, we know that the pick of Attorney General was absolutely critical for Donald Trump. He wanted to find somebody who would have absolute loyalty to him. He didn't want to go through the same experience he had during his first term. He wants someone who is going to stand by him, whether it was that someone who is going to support his plans for mass deportation or whether that was seeking retribution for his political enemies. And Matt Gaetz is someone who has been a staunch defender of Donald Trump. They have a close relationship, and he really rode the wave on the coattails of Donald Trump's MAGA rise. And we know that this choice of Attorney General had been a position that was in flux for Donald Trump for quite some time, that he struggled with this decision, that he had met with several potential candidates that were on the short list, and he had walked away unpleased and unsatisfied every single time. And we were told by sources that when he came to the decision of Matt Gaetz, it really just came out of nowhere in less than 24 hours. It even blindsided some of those closest to Donald Trump in his inner circle. It was almost as if he came to that decision nomination on a whim. But it is no surprise seeing several of Donald Trump's other picks to see that he values this loyalty above experience. And that is why we saw him doubling down on Matt Gaetz. And even as he saw the chances of Gaetz getting confirmed dimming, he was still making the push. Donald Trump was using his political capital, even directly calling senators, trying to make the pitch for Matt Gaetz.
All right, Catherine, John, Jay, Selena, we have to leave it there. Thank you, and we will be following this story throughout the day right here on ABC News Live. Stay with us.
Why do so many people start their day here?
From ABC News, this is Start Here.
To be in the know and get a different take on the day's top stories.
A lot of news today, so let's get into it.
Listen now to the Daily News Podcast honored with 4 Edward R. Murrow Awards and see why the New York Times calls it a